members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. If we need to adjourn into a closed session, I will cite the section. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. First item is our roll call. Andrew Bisco. Here. Sean Glovier. Here. Debbie Villa-Gomez.
Here.
Maria Douglas.
Here.
Felicia Moody.
Here.
Darrell Owens.
Here.
John Clark here. We have a full board. Thank you all. Sean, can you pull the 2 seconds? We'll next have public comments on agenda items. We have no one signed up for public comment on agenda items, so we'll move to item 4. For public comments on non-agenda items, all comments made to the board, please try to say within 5 minutes. Again, and any comments made to the board, we will not be commenting back in response. This is an information gathering process. As you come to the podium, please state your name and address, and we will move from, I guess, the general idea of your comments. First on the list is Sarah Johnson.
Good evening, board. My name is Sarah Johnson. I am a long life citizen of Kennedale. I graduated from Kennedale. All 4 of my kids graduated from Kennedale, and then my grands attend Kennedale. My concern is, I know we're going through changes and we're going to get more students in, but my concern is if you put Delaney with 2 and 3 and then you move 4 and 5 to Patterson, it's not good. It's not going to be good because you're going to be busing kids from Arlington over to Kennedale and vice versa. And that's with all the traffic construction going on, kids are going to get late and stuff. I have one suggestion, I don't know if y'all would think about it. The old building, the old school building that's now the city administration, at some point could be made back into a school, and then move the the school administration somewhere else, because the intent of that building was always to be a school, not to be offices. I went in that school from my junior high years. My son went in his junior high years. My grandkids didn't get that opportunity, but they've been able to go to which now is the junior high, my old high school. But it's with the pandemic that's really turned our kids upside down. I know my granddaughter struggled through it with her grades, and she's barely passing now, and she was an A student when this happened. And my little granddaughter, who's in 4th grade this year, had her heart set on staying at Delaney her last year in Delaney, and not because she loves Delaney. And so it's not just that, it's just that if we need to focus on our kids and what they've been through already this past year. And this would be kind of a turmoil for them to misplace them when they're comfortable at their present schools. And I would just hope you will consider the old building, renovating it and making it back to where it was originally its purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Navarez.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. My name is Jeff Navarez, 1009 Estates Drive. I'm here to talk to the board, start to get the ball rolling on a collaboration for a public service announcement about some of the services that the school provides to the community that is not well known. Let me back up a little bit. Last year, I see you shaking your head. Last year, we went to our 3-year-old's pediatrician for her well checkup and discussed how we were just concerned on how she wants to talk but just can't quite get the words out. And they let us know that, hey, you should check in with your school district. And I was shocked when she told us that. Why would the district want to deal with a 3-year-old when she's not pre-K age yet? But sure enough, when we reached out to the school and reached out to my contacts in the school, we figured out that yes, there's a speech program here just designed for her age group to get her better prepared for preschool and kindergarten. I had no idea, neither did my wife, and neither did most of the people that I spoke to. Now, I've spoken to several of this board's member, and I've spoken to the superintendent as well about possibly doing this. I'm just publicly kind of saying, hey, the Kendall News would love to do a PSA this year or next, especially if you're gonna line up with this new Development Child Center that you guys are speaking about. Some sort of video that the high school can design, a brochure, but just kind of just do a little focus, maybe even a day of here's what we're offering, come talk to our specialists. I'm happy to work with the Kendall Rotary Club with you guys. I just took over as president. We're happy to work with the KISD as we normally would. As Kendall News representative as well, we're happy to get that PSA announcement. And that's what I'm here to do, Mr. Clark, is just kind of get the ball rolling. I've talked to most of the boards, not you, not Anthony, and there's a couple of you I haven't yet. So I want you guys to have the discussion and see if we can get that ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Maddie Fail.
Good evening, board. Hello. I just wanted to take a moment to speak on the existing disparities between Patterson and Delaney because this is not something I was made aware of until quite recently. So all of this information is taken directly from the Texas Education Agency, or TEA. Based on the 2018-2019 school year, the most recent school year data available, Delaney had an accountability rating of B, while Patterson had a C. This rating comes from overall performance in student achievement, school progress, and how well the campus closes the gaps between students of different backgrounds. In taking an average from the point values in these categories, Patterson scored 75 points out of 100, while Delaney scored an 86. That is an 11-point difference, very significant. Delaney also achieved distinctions in reading, math, closing the gaps, and post-secondary readiness, while Patterson only achieved a single distinction in closing the gaps. Deeper analysis is even more troubling, in my opinion. In 2019, across all subjects, 31% of Delaney students reached mastery level on their STAR tests. Good job, Delaney. But only 19% of Patterson students reached a mastery level. I'm trying to see that gap closed a little bit. At Delaney as a whole, across all STAR tests, students approached or met grade level by at least 6 percentage points above the state average. At Patterson as a whole, students approached grade level at rates at or above the state average. I've lost my place. Students at grade level achieved at or above, barely above the state average, sorry about that, in reading and writing, but were below the state average in math and met grade level only in the subject of writing. In breaking down the data further, at Delaney and Patterson, the only student groups that did not exceed the state average on their test scores were African American, mixed race, and economically disadvantaged kids. However, the margin between state average and student performance was up to 19 percentage points at Patterson and 12 percentage points at Delaney. It's also significant to note that Patterson's student population is 28.9% African American, 4.6% mixed race students, and 56% economically disadvantaged students, while Delaney's student population is 18% African American, 6.5% mixed race, and 50% economically disadvantaged. The students at Patterson as a whole struggled more in 2019, but even the student groups who struggled both at Delaney and Patterson seem to have a harder time at Patterson and make up a higher percentage of the student population. This is not just an issue from 2019 either. I saw the difference at the split when I was in school in 2013 through 2015, the intermediate school that is. And community members such as Mr. Glovier saw this difference when they were in school even farther back than that. If you look up TEA school reports, everybody in the room, from any certain point in time, the data will speak for itself. There are certain years in which Patterson performed better, as Mr. G pointed out to me in the last community meeting, but on average, Patterson has had a lower performance. Why is it that one school is so different from the other? Why is it that half of the elementary students do not receive the same academic foundation as the other? These are the questions I'm looking to address. Just want to address y'all for a second. We're all here this evening because we love our kids, truly. I may not be a parent or a teacher, but I am a recent graduate, as of 2021, and I'm also a sister to 2 students within the district that I truly, truly care about. So I ask that you guys just kind of value all of the options, weigh the pros and cons, think everything through. That's all I ask from you today. I truly believe that combining the grades together will allow better communication between staff, standardize instruction, and close the gap that exists between the schools today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Allie Murphy.
Hello, my name is Allie Murphy. My address is 929 North Little School Road. I have a paper that I'm gonna pass out. This is a paper from Christy Merle, who is currently a 6th grade teacher at Arthur. She's addressing her concerns with having the elementary school split. So now I'm just gonna go on my own, not with Miss Merle. Anyway, so hi, I'm Allie. I'm a recent graduate of Kennedall High School. And as a community member, I'm committed to making sure that all the students in Kennedall are receiving an equitable education. So as Maddie stated previously, the Patterson population of students of color and economically disadvantaged students is greater than that of Delaney. Many of these students have working class parents who do not have the time or resources to supplement the learning of their students. The current Patterson students could benefit from having more involvement from what would be Delaney parents. And on the other hand, Delaney students can benefit from the combination of the schools by being exposed to different cultures and backgrounds to break down biases earlier. This improvement of education through exposure will benefit both Delaney and Patterson students and will eliminate the culture clash at higher grade levels. Being together from pre-K to 12 will also allow the students to create a rich bond with each other. I'm gonna read a quick letter from a fellow member of the PAL program at the high school. Hello, my name is Robin Lindeman and I'm a recent graduate of Kennedall High School. I attended Patterson in elementary school and I was a part of the Kennedall High School's PAL program. Every week I would visit my PALies at both Delaney and Patterson, and there are clear disparities. Being up close and personal with both elementaries on a weekly basis, it is obvious that there is a difference in how schools are taught and treated, or students are taught and treated in each school. This divide is not new, as it's been a problem since Patterson was established and since I, Robin, attended Patterson. For example, Patterson does have a somewhat transient population of sorts. Normally, a PAL will have one PALee throughout the year to create a deeper bond with. But during just my first year in PAL, I had 4 different PALees, as these students were often leaving the district. These transient populations could be enticed to stay in the district if they believed their students were receiving a quality education at Patterson. If you take away the rivalry and division, Delaney and Patterson students are all just students who deserve an equal chance to be successful. We cannot allow zip codes to dictate what the children in our community learn and their future level of success. Thank you. So, now back to me. Not only does eliminating the split stop the culture shock, the students enter the upper level campuses with a more even and balanced education level, helping Arthur teachers. I have a letter from Christy Merle, which I gave to you, a 6th grade teacher at Arthur advocating for eliminating the split. Because of time limits, I'm not gonna read it. Y'all have it and you can read it. She basically, to sum up a couple of her points, she said having a team and being able to collaborate vertically or horizontally between the grade is super important, and they can pull their resources together and make sure that all the students are taught with fidelity and consistency. And to close this out, I want to remind you all that the difference in Delaney and Patterson is not going to magically just change. These disparities have been present since the school's creation, and the only way to fix it is to try something completely new. The future of our community rests upon the students receiving a good, equal education, and this is bigger than us and our own personal inconveniences. We have to advocate for the students who cannot advocate for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura Simpson, is that right, Laura?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Laura Simpson. I reside at 400 Fountain Court in Kennedall, Texas. I have 2 kiddos that are in the Kennedall School District. Both of them started from kindergarten, so that's kind of my background. I know at the last committee meeting, I think it was option 3 had more votes, but there was a lot of parents that were not aware of exactly what was going on at the meetings, and some of them that did know thought that option 5 was already pre-decided, so they decided not to come. There was other reasons such as vacation, no childcare, or they had to work. So that was another reason why a bunch of people weren't able to attend the meetings. So a couple people did some polls just to get more of the community that wasn't able to attend, so y'all could kind of see. Now, one of the polls was on Kendall's Mom Talk, so sorry, some of y'all guys are not on there. So I did bring that poll because that one was actually a true poll where you just selected and it tallied the votes for y'all. So I'll go ahead and give y'all a copy of that.
Thank you.
So for those of you out first looking at this, or people here in the room that haven't seen it, it basically has option 3 and option 5, and those are what they were labeled at the meetings. And as you'll see, option 5 had 117 votes, and option 3 had 5 votes. On this poll, it actually lets you add in your own votes, so that's why there's somebody put in an option pre-K through 6 at Delaney that had 9 votes, which kind of skews stuff. But if you just compare option 5 and option 3, it was 96% chose option 5, which was to have both Patterson and Delaney 2nd through 5th grade. I think the overall feeling from the parents that were also commenting on the different polls was, of course, driving to and from campus is going to be crazy. It's also, especially for parents like me that work, trying to get to all the different campuses, and more honestly, busing is going to be more expensive because now my kids aren't able to ride the bus, but if they have to go to Patterson, they are able to ride the bus. But I think the most important reason for us parents is just the physically changing schools every 2 years. We feel like that's really detrimental to their emotional well-being. There's something to be said for a kid going through school, going to school for several years. They get comfortable with the campus, they get comfortable with their teachers, with the environment, and most of the parents felt like that was probably the number one priority, as opposed to switching them every 2 years. And in fact, some parents even said that if the other option got selected where they had to switch every 2 years, that they were considering either pulling their kids from the district and either looking at charter school, homeschool, or a private school. Let's see, some other. And I volunteer on the PTO as the vice president of the PTO board. There's also things like, we all want our parents to be volunteers. We struggle with getting volunteers at times for certain things. And if your kids are split between multiple different campuses, it's going to be really hard to get parents to volunteer. So that's something that also I would like to be considered. And then another thing, we all like to attend our children's events at school. That's something else that would be split if the campuses are split between grades, like Meet the Teacher Night or Student Literacy Night, the awards night, just everything that's going on throughout the year. If we have to try to balance our focus, more than likely we're not going to be able to make it to all of those events either. And I know I would like to be as involved in my kids' schools as much as possible. I think those were my main points, so thank you for your time.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
Taylor Hayes.
Good evening. I don't like to speak in a microphone because I'm typically loud enough for everybody to hear me already. Taylor Hayes. I live at 1011 Oak Hill Park. I am a parent of 2 children currently in the district, entering 5th grade and 1st grade, and have an upcoming kindergartner fall of 2022. As a corporate real estate professional and a Kennedale taxpayer, I want to thank you for the work that you've done in reviewing the efficiencies of the school, the occupancy, how we're utilizing the buildings, trying to come up with multiple options that will accommodate what we're trying to accommodate, as well as minimize spend for the taxpayers. Appreciate that. Like Laura mentioned, there are a lot of negative comments on option 3 for various reasons all around social media. If you have not seen those, I encourage you to just go read them. Take it with a grain of salt, but at least read them. I don't want to focus my time on that. Instead, I want to focus my little time on talking about the advantages to option 5, keeping children in the same school 2nd through 5th grade. First day of kindergarten, my now 5th grade son walked in and immediately asked about the ceiling tiles. Painted, wanted to know the story behind that. Some point throughout the day, he found out and informed me at the end of school that when he's a 4th grader, he gets to paint the ceiling tiles. Later on throughout the year, he saw the student council members helping out in the cafeteria in the morning. He wanted to grow up and make good grades and be the 4th grade student council and run for student council. This is just a great example as to having older children set great examples and be role models. Give the younger kids something to strive for, something to achieve. Then in 3rd grade, he had the opportunity to be in the gym in the morning and be the assistant to the gym teacher, with lining up the kindergartners, helping the 1st graders get in their spots, reminding them to be quiet, and it gave him a sense of responsibility, something to be proud of, being that role model that as a kindergartner he had decided he wanted to be as a 4th grader. I think you lose a lot of that when you have 2 grade levels and you're only looking horizontally throughout your entire course from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. I think there's a lot of conversations about the negativity of coming together in 5th grade now, 6th grade later on. It's a fact of life. There's very few school districts within the Metroplex that go to school with their exact same friends from kindergarten all the way to high school. So the first time you're exposing children to that diversity, bringing kids together, learning how to make new friends is in college. I don't think that's a great example of teaching in life skills throughout school before graduation. While I think all options are going to educate our children, I do ask that you consider some of the emotional and mental importances in splitting up these schools. As far as curriculum, I'm very interested in hearing Dr. Julie speak on curriculum and the difference between the 2 elementary schools. I'd like to think that we've got a good curriculum across the board. If there's anywhere that we can improve, I think that's at a teaching level, a curriculum level, working together, if there truly is 2 different curriculums being taught to 2 different elementary schools, which I have a hard time seeing. I do think a lot of that will be eliminated with this great elementary early education center, starting everybody on the same foundation. I see no concerns with splitting up for 2nd grade and then coming back together in 6th grade. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have special district recognitions, Mr. G.
We have no recognitions this month, but we do have a presentation from the Kennedale ISD Alumni Association. Ms. Lori Middleton Sanders is here, and I don't know who you have with you, Lori. So
Thelma Kobeck.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. First of all, before Thelma actually tells about the recognition, the last speaker, you said something that made several of us sitting in here tonight realize how really lucky we were, because we did go to school 1st through 12th all in one building. If you were in 1st grade, you knew the 12th graders. So there is something to be said about being very close to one another and having those examples. But another thing that brings about is that even though you may not have had a teacher or a coach yourself, you knew who that teacher and coach was. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Someone near and dear to our hearts, and that it's been a long time coming, but we would like to have a special recognition and present it to the school. We don't have it right now, but it's almost finished, but Thelma is gonna tell about it.
I'm shorter than Laurie, so I have to pull this down. Good evening. I'm Thelma Kovic, Kennedale High School class of 1983.
74, I forgot to say that.
We weren't all in the same building, but I guarantee you I knew the high school students when I was in elementary. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a man who was in Kennedale ISD for many years, and he truly is deserving of the recognition that we want to give him. Paul Basildou Sr. was born June 29th of 1930 in San Antonio, Texas, to Mateo Basildou and Simona Galindo, and was raised by Justo and Simona Martinez Galindo. In 1950, Paul graduated as the male valedictorian of his high school class. He then joined the Air Force and served in Korea. While serving his country, he received the National Defense Service Medal, the United Nations Service Medal, the Korean Service Medal, and the Good Conduct Medal. Paul Basildou earned his Bachelor of Arts degree from Texas Christian University in 1963, and he was certified to teach secondary history and secondary Spanish, grades 6 through 12. I know because I went to SBEC and looked it up. Paul then moved to Uvalde, Texas to teach Texas history. While he was in Uvalde, Paul was offered a scholarship at Rice University in Houston. He accepted and went on to earn his master's degree. And in 1966, which ironically was the year I was born, he began his long, successful career at Kennedale ISD as an educator and a coach. And he retired from the school district in 1993. Paul Basildou Sr. passed away on June 28, 2018, at the age of 87, and was survived by his son and 2 daughters, as well as numerous grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Now, I've just presented you with a very brief biography of Paul Basildou's life, the kind of snapshot of someone you might find in an obituary. In fact, that is exactly where I got most of the information that I just shared with you. But that brief snapshot cannot accurately portray to you just who Paul Basildou Sr. really was and how he influenced the lives of countless Kennedale ISD students. Paul Basildou Sr. was a teacher, a coach, a principal, a mentor, role model, and so much more. He taught Texas history to many KISD alumni in the middle school, junior high, depending on what we were calling it at the time. No student slept through Texas history class because Coach Basildou made Texas history come alive. You left his class with an understanding of and appreciation for the proud history of the Lone Star State that went well beyond whatever was found in the textbook. He was a dedicated coach who instilled principles of discipline, teamwork, fair play, and good sportsmanship in his players. As a principal, Paul Basildou Sr. ensured the students for whom he was responsible were well educated, respected, and treated fairly and equitably. Coach Basildou was also a mentor and a role model. He began teaching long before quality English language acquisition programs were commonplace for students whose native language was not English, back when total immersion was practiced and English language learners were expected to either sink or swim, linguistically and academically. Coach Basildou was someone who could empathize with their challenges and who encouraged them to continue to pursue their dreams by obtaining a quality education. Now, Kennedale ISD was a great deal more homogeneous in the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s than it is today. And Coach Basildou understood how it felt to stand out in the crowd because of your ethnicity or the color of your skin. And consequently, his presence was a strong support for Kennedale students of color during those decades. A student always knew where he or she stood with Coach Basildou. He was seldom seen without a smile or pleasant demeanor. But if you did happen to do something to disappoint him or violate the code of conduct, you knew it was going to be dealt with quickly, fairly, and effectively. The punishment would fit the crime, and few students committed the same offense twice after Coach Basildou addressed the problem. Coach Basildou always had time for Kennedale ISD and its students, and you didn't have to be an athlete to gain Coach's attention. Many Kennedale alumni have shared with me how Coach Basildou made them feel as if they mattered and inspired them. He even had time for a nerdy, brainy, socially inept, non-athletic female student like me, and I appreciated him and respected him for it. Paul Basildou Sr., Coach Basildou, as we all still know him, may have retired almost 3 decades ago, but he left an indelible stamp on Kennedale ISD and the community. And because of Coach Basildou, there are many Kennedale ISD alumni who dared to continue their education, who dared to go on to pursue successful careers, who dared to become productive members of society, who dared to dream. In recognition of the accomplishments of Coach Paul Basildou Sr. and the impact he continues to have on the Kennedale ISD and the community, and in an effort to show our appreciation for him as an educator and as a person, a large group of Kennedale alumni wishes to honor him with a memorial bench and a memorial stone that will accompany the bench. The memorial bench has been donated by Mr. Donald Grimes. The memorial stone has been created by Memorial Monuments and was donated by Mr. Bob Samuel and Mrs. Brenda Biondi Samuel. We would like to place the bench and memorial stone to the side of what Kennedale alumni affectionately refer to as the old football field on Crestview, behind Delaney. This is the field where Paul Basildou coached for so many years, and it is our hope that this location will allow students and teachers of Delaney to be able to sit on the bench at recess. The bench and monument stone will be installed and secured onto a concrete pad, and the pouring of the concrete and placement of the bench and monument stone will be lovingly performed by longtime KISD maintenance employees and class of '74 alumni Bob Samuel and Chucky Carpenter. These gentlemen will be performing this work as KISD alumni and not as KISD employees. Therefore, this work will not occur during their work hours on the clock, but rather on their own personal time. The memorial stone will simply read, "In loving memory and honor of Coach Paul Basildou Sr., KISD 1966 to 1993, from the Kennedale alumni." Thank you.
Thank you.
And Coach Basildou's son and daughter are here tonight.
Let me just share with everyone how he told people to remember his name.
Oh, yeah. He would say, if a new student came, he would always tell them, "Now, if you can't remember my name, just remember, when you go fishing, if you can't catch a catfish, a bass will do."
Thank you.
That's sweet.
Thank you. We now move to agenda item 6, our consent agenda. All items are on the consent agenda may be enacted by a single motion unless an item is requested to be removed by a board member. Does any board member request to remove an item from the consent agenda to be considered separately? Chair hears no request, so I'll entertain a motion with regard to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
A motion by Mr. Bisco,
Second.
a second by Mr. Glovier. Any further discussion on this item? Chair hears none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear no opposition votes. That motion passes unanimously. We now have item 7, business items requiring action. Mr. G.
This is basically a formality with Arlington ISD with shared service agreement to provide services for deaf students. So,
Has everyone had a chance to review that contract? It's an ongoing arrangement we have with Arlington. Anyone have any questions? And so then I will, let's see, section here. I'll entertain a motion with regard to the approval of the 2021-2022 AIC Shared Services Agreement.
Motion to accept the new service agreement.
A motion by Mrs. Villagomez,
Second.
second by Mrs. Douglas. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair hears none. That motion passes unanimously. Item 7B, discuss and consider approval of the 2021-2022 Property and Casualty Insurance Renewal Proposal. Ms. Mode?
You want me to take it?
She's way up there.
Yes,
Does anybody have any questions? I didn't know we were, it's a renewal, so I didn't realize we were going to go through everything.
Well, did everyone have a chance to review the information?
Yes.
Are there any questions? You might want to share why it makes sense to continue with our current provider.
I don't know if y'all know, I was a former Allstate agent, so know a little bit about insurance. If you had 2 car wrecks in a year, it's usually not a good year to go out for insurance. We had 2 big claims this year, so, and we really did get a good rate from our existing carrier. We haven't had any problems with them in the last 5 years that they've been with us. They've been quick to pay, they've been on the spot as soon as I call them. And our increase was only 17%, which I know that sounds outrageously high, but a lot of commercial people are looking at 20, 25, and 30% increases. And they did increase our statement of value almost $5 million. So it is less than $50,000 increase for the year, but it's a necessary evil for us. And the biggest thing is the deductible. We have a $50,000 deductible on any occurrence we have. So like the fire we had over here, right now we're at about $350,000. That claim is not closed yet either. Another reason to probably stay where we're at, so we can finish that up. But we're only out $50,000. But if we get a hailstorm here and it hits every one of our buildings, we got a $50,000 deductible. With a 1% deductible, which is what the industry is pushing now, most of you have probably felt that on your homeowners, we'd be looking at over $1 million with one incident. So it's advantageous to stay at this point. I think next year we will have been with this carrier now for 6 years. We do need to go out to bid and really see what happens in the market, but it's just been a very volatile market this year. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
What were the 2 claims?
We had the ice storm, which got our press box and both of our concession stands. Luckily, our Ideal Impact helped us so much because I was able to talk with them and we raised the heat in the buildings to where the pipes didn't freeze. And the only place we lost is in these outer areas where we didn't have the internal heat to hold that, to keep the pipes from freezing. But none of our buildings, none of our school buildings had any water damage from broken pipes. So that saved us too. So it's kind of a double win there for us on that. But we are just finished up the press box. If y'all want to go look at, see, we have redone the concession stand because we had substantial water damage there. And the concession stand, if you remember back in May, we took a lightning strike, which substantially blew all the transformers, so totally took out our high school during STAR testing for 2 days. And it burned down our, the jolt went back and caught the baseball concession stand on fire. So that one's the one we're still in the middle of working on. The ice storm was in February. Yeah.
Any other questions? Then, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll entertain a motion with regard to approval of the property and casualty renewal with USI as presented.
Make a motion to approve the property and casualty renewal with USI as presented for the 2021-2022 school year.
Motion by Mr. Bisco.
Second.
Ms. Villagomez beat you briefly. Second by Ms. Villagomez. Any further questions or comments? And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair hears none, that motion passes unanimously. We now move to item 7C, which is discuss, I guess, our possible nomination to fill a seat on the TASB Board of Directors. We have two nominees, Corrine Boyd-French and Dr. Paula McDonald. And their resumes were provided, so I hope everyone's had a chance to look at them. Again, we don't have to endorse. I mean, again, we can leave it alone or we can endorse. It's kind of our choice. So does anyone have any strong preferences with regard to either of the candidates? If you do, kind of share them with us.
Question, are there any other information about these candidates that we know of besides what we read in the
Resumes.
I don't think there's any other information. It's only, they provide the information to TASB, who then circulates it. I mean, I guess you could go on their social media and look and see what they have to say. I don't have any additional information. I did call around and ask another TASB official if they had any contact. And the only answer to that is that Ms. French has had a longer experience history.
That's what I was gonna say.
That kind of is, with what's going on in the state, that experience history with TASB and in the district, they felt like was of importance to consider. That's all I heard.
That's all I really saw. That other one was less than a year, and Miss French was 9 years.
And I think the district that she represents on the school board is kind of a smaller district like ours that is situated next to a larger school districts as well. So while we're not the same, 4A kind of school district, it's a similar, smaller, next to very large district. So she would bring that experience as well.
Any further comments? Any other concerns? Then I'll entertain a motion by someone as far as making a nomination to endorse a person of your preference, and then we'll vote on that as a group with yeses and nos.
Mr. President, I had a motion that we nominate Corrine Boyd-French for the TASB Board of Directors.
Motion by Ms. Douglas.
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. Any further discussion or questions regarding that motion? Then I will start with all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The chair hears none, so that motion passes unanimously. We will reflect that we endorse Ms. French to fill the position on the TASB Board of Directors. We now move to item 7D, discuss and consider approval of update 117, the second reading.
We've had no questions, comments, or anything on it, so my recommendation would be to accept it as TASB has it presented.
Did everyone have a chance to review those 200 and some odd pages of interesting legal commentary?
Yes, everyone.
And the conversation is always when you start talking about local versus legal, I think we certainly have a lot more autonomy on the local. We have to be very careful when we're talking about legal.
Right.
So again, it looked to me that it was mostly a significant amount of deletion, which I assume
Less
means they're
addition.
feeling more confident in the language that they're using and are able to narrow it down, and that's why the recommendations come the way they do. So if no one has any further comments or questions, then I will entertain a motion with regard to accepting the local policy revisions under update 117.
Make a motion to move that the board make revisions to local policies affected by update 117 as recommended by TASB Policy Service and District Administration.
Motion by Mr. Blovier.
Second.
Is that you, Debbie?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Villagomez. Any further comment or question? And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair hears none. That motion passes unanimously. We now move to item 7E, discuss and consider compensation package for the 2021-2022 school year.
Ms. King's up.
For those that I haven't met, I don't believe I've met Debbie yet. My name is Brandy King. I'm the HR director for Kennedale ISD. So I have a lot of information for you guys tonight regarding the compensation package for 21-22. So you guys just bear with me, please. A few years ago, Mr. G, Mr. Adams, Ms. Williams, and I began consistently reviewing our salary scales and how our district compares to other districts in surrounding us as well as within the region, and specifically to those districts that were comparable to us in size. Knowing that we have competitive salaries and stipends in some areas, we also knew and we were mindful that we were not comparable to some salaries and stipends in other areas, okay? So since 2019, we've been working to balance out job duties and responsibilities for our staff, as well as balance out previous inequities and working to ensure that our employees are compensated equitably and fairly. With school year 2008, 2009, way back, was the last time that we really reviewed and adjusted our salary scales to meet the competitive market. So in knowing this, we knew that it was time for us to start taking some really hard looks and start making some adjustments going forward. In your orientation booklet that you received last week, you received a copy of the 21-22 proposed salary scales. So with these scales, there was a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of research that Ms. Williams and I did to provide this data to you. So it's a direct reflection of this research. We pulled salary scales from many other districts. We pulled resources from UEA, from TASB's annual salary study surveys. They provide us annually that'll detail out salaries per almost every position that districts hold. We looked at larger districts that offered salaries and stipends, as well as comparable sized districts within our Metroplex and within the region and across the state. So we kind of looked at all these different buckets. And we found that Kennedale was lagging behind with comparable salaries in certain areas. And those areas that we found were our entry-level food service and custodial staff, as well as our teachers with 4 years of experience or less, and some stipends. So after the hours of research, we had lots of hours of discussion with Mr. G and Mr. Adams. We did budget projections, just kind of looking at numbers and trying to figure out what would be best for the district, what would be best for our staff. So with your blessing, the following is a summary of changes that we would like to propose to provide a more competitive pay to help onboard new applicants and retain our current valued staff. So looking first at teachers, we are looking on the 21-22 salary scale with those teachers that are coming in straight out of college, 0 years of experience, up to 4 years of experience. We're looking to shift their minimum starting pay from an annual of $53,456 to $56,000 a year, resulting in shifting Kennedale away from the top 34th paying in the district to among the top 15 highest paid in the Metroplex. This change will place Kennedale in line with districts comparable not only to our size, like Lake Worth and Castleberry ISD, but it'll put us in a competitive market with Mansfield ISD as well, the larger districts. The scale will also provide a $1,200 step increase for teachers with 5 years of experience or greater, keeping us within the top 5 to 15 highest paying districts in the Metroplex, okay? Looking next at food service cooks and servers and entry-level custodial support in hopes to address our 30 to 40% turnover ratio. With this group, we're looking to shift their current minimum starting pay of $9.21 an hour to the very much needed $11 an hour. The research showed that our night custodians were starting out $1 to $2 less per hour than our comparable region districts, those close to us. This change will shift the incoming custodian, starting at $11 an hour, to an approximate annual gross salary of $13,500 to a $16,100 annual salary. And the average 6-hour-a-day food service worker from an average of a $10,000 a year salary to $11,500. And keep in mind, these individuals, they're working 75 days a year to 184 days a year. So they're basically working when school is in session. So that's a reflection of why the salaries are what you're hearing.
Right.
Next, we looked at substitutes. Substitutes have been a very hot topic of conversation over the past few years. Our daily fulfillment rates can vary from 40% of daily jobs filled, so 40% of our absences each day are getting filled, up to 80 to 100%. It just kind of depends on the situation, how soon the absences go in, and how many absences we have in the system. So we conducted a lot of research on this group, and we have found that we've been very competitive over the past school years with our substitute daily rate of pay. But we know going into 21-22 that our surrounding districts are looking at really increasing those sub-pay rates, and some are very significant increases. So currently, a non-degreed substitute is being paid $75 per day, a degreed at $80, and a certified sub is $85 a day. We're asking to increase their daily rate by $5. That'll put us in the range from $80 to $90 a day. They would still receive the long-term sub pay, which would be in addition to that for those long-term over 10-day assignments. But we're hoping to maintain a competitive rate of pay by increasing that amount and help ensure that our 209 teachers have classes taken care of if they need to take a day off. Additionally, we looked at stipends. We found that while some of our stipends were very competitive and in line with market averages, others were not. So a few examples of change for the 21-22 school year include reproportioning of stipends in the area of CTE to meet the expectations of that program moving forward, increased amounts for our department heads at our secondary level and team leads at elementary and intermediate campuses, increased stipend for our UIL coordinators. And one more, our coaching stipends. We're looking to adjust those accordingly to be comparable to districts our size. And finally, our paraprofessional, our classroom support, office support, clerical support, as well as our operational support to receive a 4% increase to their hourly rate. This will adjust the average hourly rate for our classroom para support, including the hard-to-retain positions such as our special education classroom paras. Also our operational support, which is our lead building workers and our general district maintenance individuals, from a current approximate average of $14.80 an hour to $15.48 an hour. Lastly, our professionals to receive a 3% increase, and this will help target some discrepancies we found in daily rates when we have our professional staff that are required to hold a master's degree for their position of record, and then there's a daily rate discrepancy between that professional scale versus if they were to stay in the classroom and be on that teacher scale, because our teacher scale is very, very lucrative. So I know this is a lot of information. Thank you for your time. I believe 100% moving this forward is going to help our employees on an individual level and help provide us a fair, equitable pay for them. So, any questions for me?
I do. We went through that, and I wrote everything down, but
Okay.
I got Lake Worth, Castleberry, Mansfield, and then that was move them to the top 15% for our 0 to 4. Then you talked about the next group, which was 5 to a different range.
5 to 40 years approximately. Okay. Well, currently the 0 to 5 years of experience, we're ranked 34 in the Metroplex.
Okay.
So we're currently paying $53.4. We've got Castleberry, who's ranked, and I don't know off the top of my head, maybe 11th in the Metroplex.
Right.
They're at 56.1. Shifting us to that 56,000 threshold will get us further higher on the scale so that we're more competitive in that target group. Now, you're 5 through 40.
Right.
We find that we've been very in line with that. Oh, you do have the
Yeah, we
UEA.
got it. Like, I
Good.
just want to know,
Okay.
okay, because you said 1,200 for something, which will move us to the top 15%. I didn't get the rest of that.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
The
was it the
5?
increase to everything else?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at step 5
Right.
on our teacher salary scale,
Mhm.
step 5 through 30 or 40, Those steps would increase $1,200 for our
Right.
current teachers, or those coming in on that step scale level, and that's gonna keep us in the top rating of 5 through 15th in the
Okay.
Metroplex.
Okay.
Another issue that, when House Bill 3 came out, it made school districts give raises, but those raises were not given to beginning teachers. It was for 5 years and up. So the new teachers were left out of that, and it really threw it out of whack, which dropped us down into 34%.
And
you know.
we've ranked higher, the 0 to 5 in previous years. We've been up in the 15th or 12% ranking. We've just kind of gradually
Pulling down.
gotten higher away from that top pay.
Okay, and then you said the long-term sub, right now, we're not doing an increase, but for long-term subs, I know it's more than 10 days, what is their salary?
Okay, so for a substitute that's fulfilling a long-term assignment, if they are a non-degreed sub, they're getting $75 a day. If they are in that assignment, actually not the same assignment, but if they are in subbing for our district more than 10 consecutive days, they could be at Delaney one day, Patterson the next, high school the next, it's an additional $10 per day. So currently, a non-certified sub would make upwards of $75 a day to $85 a day.
Okay.
Degreed would be 80 to 90, and then certified would be 85 to 95. But if we increase that by $5, it would just increase that rate of pay. And we do pay a little bit more when they work Fridays as well, just to get those fulfillments at as close to 100% as possible.
And then my last question is for the aides and the support staff, it's a 4% increase. It's going from, did you say $14.80 to
$14.48, and that's an approximate on our current staff.
Okay.
I just took our current staff, did an approximate average on how much that would impact them per hour.
Okay. Thank you for all the information.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Glover, any questions?
No questions.
Nope, I think we're good.
No questions?
No, I just have a comment. I'm glad we got the information at the orientation training and then your follow-up information. That was very helpful. Thank you.
If there are no further questions or discussion, then I will entertain a motion with regard to the 2021-2022 compensation package as presented.
I would love to make a motion to accept the 2021 to 2022 compensation package as presented.
And I would love to second that.
Then I have a motion by Ms. Villa-Gomez and a second by Ms. Douglas. Any further comments or questions or discussion? And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair hears none. That motion passes unanimously. We now move to item 8, which is informational presentation, starting with item 8A, the American Rescue Plan, Esser 3.
We have a few ladies that will be coming forward to present this.
Make sure it works.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Let's make sure.
Oh, a pointer. And a clicker.
I'm here today to talk to you about our ESSER 3 funds. We discussed this at our last meeting. I gave you a general overview. You have the use of funds. You will have the use of funds. So the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER, is, as it's commonly referred to, was passed in March of 2021.
Thank you.
A portion of these funds are provided to local districts, including state educational agencies, to help safely reopen and sustain the safe operation of schools, as well as to address the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on our nation's students. And so with that, I am going to introduce you to Ms. Laura Wells. She is a recent addition to our team. Come up here. She's very excited about presenting to you today. She is going to talk through the process. So one of the requirements for districts to receive these funds is we have to publicly present information about our use of funds. And so this is an information-only item. She's going to talk you through the process. She's going to talk about the entitlement, the funds that we're going to receive. She's going to talk about the process of how we conducted a comprehensive needs assessment, how we collected feedback from stakeholders, we reviewed the data, and then she's going to share with you the recommendations for the funds. So I'll just push this that way. Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm really nervous, so y'all be patient with me. Pivot with me if you don't mind. So Esser 3, we're really excited about this grant. 2/3 of the total amount will be allocated upon NOGA, which is notification of grant approval. And then we have 1/3 that's being held back. TA will notify us when we can get that. This is the Esser timeline. And this is Esser 1, Esser 2, and Esser 3. As you can tell, in March, pre-awarded granted, they talked to us about Esser. September 30th, Esser 1 ends. September 30th, Esser 2 ends, and September 30th, Esser 3 ends. And that's the time that we have to have all the grants in, done.
In place.
Submitted, thank you. These are the requirements, and I'm going to go through the requirements with you. The first thing we'll do is the public notice, planning process, expenditure guidelines. Thank you. Services plan, I hate that word. Meaningful consultation with stakeholders, and the use of funds plan. There is a public notice requirement for Esser 3. This notice is to be made available to the public before the district submits the application to TEA. We've met this requirement by putting the notice on the KISD website, allowing all stakeholder feedback, and making sure that it's in other languages. This is the timeline for the planning process. As you can tell, it'll start in August and go all the way, starts in July and goes through August, I'm sorry. And what we're gonna do is, we've done all these things. I'm sorry, okay, so. We had, let me find June. Okay, so on June 4th, we had a campus leadership meeting, and we met with campus administrators. On June 21st, we had a district leadership meeting when we met with all of the district heads. And then June 23rd, we created an Esser committee, and June 29th, we had our first meeting. And then today is our presentation of funds.
Was that May, the first two?
I'm sorry.
Because it says August on the left.
Yeah, those dates are off.
Yeah.
They're off. Yes, they are. They were done in June. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We've already done the survey.
Yeah.
We did it to all the stakeholders.
I was just thrown off by August.
I am too. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted everyone else to know.
Okay, so one of our requirements for expenditure is we must expend a minimum of 20% of the grant funds to address the academic impact of lost instruction time by providing the following. Evidence-based interventions such as means these are the things we can do and more. Summer learning, extended day and comprehensive after-school programs, or extended school year program. And right now we are doing a summer school. It's called Jumpstart. Interventions that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs and addressing disproportionate
You're fine.
impact of coronavirus on student populations as defined in ESSA Title I, Part A, students experiencing homelessness and youth in foster care. But I want you to know that more than 20% will be allocated for interventionists, social workers, and a district intervention counselor, in addition to instructional materials to address the academic, mitigate the learning loss that we're experiencing, and social, emotional, mental needs that have impacted our student body as a result of the coronavirus. 20% of the current allocation, which is 2/3, will be this amount, and then 20% of the total allocation will be the bottom amount. And we will make sure that at least, well, really more than 20%. The ESSER grant requires the district to have a plan for the safe return to face-to-face person instruction and continuity of services. We have met this requirement by submitting the plan for review and approval by the ESSER Stakeholder Committee, which has already happened. We will be posting the plan on the KISD website and allowing for public comment. This plan will be reviewed every 6 months with our committee, and where appropriate, we're going to revise and always receive public feedback through the grant period, and posting on the plan on the KISD website within 30 days of NOGA.
The district that receives ESSER 3 funds must develop and make public available on the district website a plan for the use of ESSER 3 funds, and we'll be showing that to you. We have met this requirement by providing the school board an overview of the grant and the use of funds plan, posting the use of funds plan on the district's website, and making it available in a format that is understandable, having it in a language that parents can understand, and if not, will orally translate, and sharing an alternative format that is accessible for the parents upon request by a parent who is an individual with a disability. So we'll make sure that everybody understands it, and where needed, will help. This is the required stakeholders representation. And when we did the survey, we made sure that all of these were addressed. The district must engage in meaningful consultation with stakeholders and give the public an opportunity to provide input into the development of the plan for the use of ESSER 3 funds. We have met this requirement by distributing the stakeholder survey. We formed our stakeholder committee, and we collected feedback during meetings with the stakeholder committee, district department heads, and campus administrators. You should have gotten the stakeholder feedback. This is JFD recommendations. They wanted leveled literacy intervention kits, reading and math interventionist, a social worker, interactive whiteboards, and document cameras. This is the survey result from the elementary, and as you can see, it supports what they're asking for also.
I'm sorry, are we waiting till the very end to ask questions, or are we asking questions as we go? I just wanna know.
I mean, I don't know if it's either go to the presentation and go and pick up the pieces.
Okay.
This is JFG supporting data, and I apologize. I do have the data in here, and if you'll go through it's in your packet that I gave you, and it'll tell you the amount of students that tested, the percentage, and whether they approached or met. So these are the, this is the supporting data for approaches.
He's coming.
And while she's fixing that, I just want to clarify. I'll clarify for those of you who may be new to the board or looking at STAR scores. Approaches means pass. They pass the test. They're able to go on. Meets is what Texas has determined is meets grade level. Nationally normed, it's a little bit higher than what is considered meets grade level in other states, but that's what Texas has decided. And then masters means they're in the top tier of performance standards. And so the chart she's provided for you shows the breakdown of approaches, passes, meets, and masters.
RFP recommendations were leveled literacy intervention kits, reading, math, and behavior interventionists, social worker, interactive whiteboards, and positive behavior interventions and supports. And this is the survey that supports what they were asking for. And this is their data. This is approaches. And this is meets. JAA recommendations were projectors, social worker, supplemental intervention materials, and tutoring funds. This is their survey that supports. This is their supporting data for approaches. And meets. Kennedy Junior High School's recommendations were a Fresh Start teacher, social worker, and curriculum support. And this is their survey that supports the request. This is their data for approaches and meets. Kennedy High School recommendations were a Fresh Start teacher, intervention paraprofessionals, school safety equipment, instructional resources and supplies, classroom technology. And this is their survey that supports their request. This is their supporting data by approaches and meets. We went to the district stakeholder technology department, asked for interactive whiteboards, cloud-based identity management system, projectors, communication phone system upgrade. And this is the survey that supports their recommendations. Special education department recommendations were reading and math curriculum support, digital evaluation technology, and adaptive software for reading intervention. And this is the survey results. Counseling department recommendations were communities and school case manager, district intervention counselor, and a district social worker. And this is the survey that supports their request. Facilities, operations, safety, and security department recommendations were sanitation equipment, HVACs, HEPA filter system, microfiber system, transportation, safety vestibules, and district-wide radio communication systems. And this is the survey that supports those needs. Esser 3 Stakeholder Committee recommendations. When we had our meeting, they went through the data, they went through the survey, and these are the recommendations they came up with. Social emotional learning support for all students, interactive instructional materials, training on student behavior, emotional needs, intervention staff support, certified and paraprofessional, and smaller class sizes. Overview of our recommendations. The recommendations of all required stakeholders have been solicited, and the following recommendations are being proposed. Social emotional support staff and training. We will be getting a CIS social worker, K-6 social worker, and intervention counselor to provide mental health support, training for our staff, and resources for families and students to gain access to public and private services like food, shelter, transportation, school supplies, and clothing. Academic support staff, interventionists, our summer school staff, and credit recovery teachers to mitigate the learning gaps. Instructional resources and technology, evidence-based materials to support strong Tier 1 instruction, interactive learning, and targeted intervention. And equipment for our facility maintenance, sanitizing equipment to maintain the cleanliness of all our facilities. This is our ESSER 3 use of funds. And we'll show you the initial allocation, the remaining allocation, and where we've allocated the funds. This will be amended as we continue to get feedback and from all our stakeholders.
Is that the last slide?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
And we got question time. I'm sure they have questions.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
That presentation was awesome, but a lot of that is not what we have in front of us. So will we get the survey results, the supporting
You
data,
did
and the
get it.
supplemental requests?
I sent the survey results. They were in a document and embedded. You could go to the survey results.
And where did you send that?
It should be in the board book.
I didn't see that in the board book, because I
We
specifically.
have the information sheet, we do not have the data attached.
No.
We'll get it to you. If it's
Okay.
not on it,
So
yeah.
that entire thing would be great, not just the survey results, exactly how you presented it. The survey results, the data that supported, and exactly what their requests were.
Yes.
Because I understand this is for informational purposes,
Yes.
but without that in front of me, it is hard for me to follow and make sure that the data is following across the board. I'm sure it is, but I just need to see it for
No, I
myself.
understand, yes. I'll make sure that you get that.
And when did we do the ESSER 3 stakeholder committees?
June 29th is when we had the meeting,
Okay.
and then the committee was formed June 20th?
And you said that was stakeholders were involved as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, Do you know how many stakeholders were present?
We had 7 present that day.
Because I'm wondering how that was advertised. Maybe I missed it, but I would have attended an ESSER 3 stakeholder committee meeting.
Well, it was the survey that we did all stakeholders.
Okay.
And so the committee was formed of just like parents. We did parents, teachers, and some had double roles. Like if you happen to be a teacher and a parent of a special needs student. And then I made sure that there was at least one person from each campus so that we got feedback from every campus.
So they were selected, or it was sent out and anybody?
No, I selected them, but it is open. And once we get on the KISD website, the next time we have a meeting, it'll be open for anyone who would like to come.
Okay, repeat that again.
I selected them.
Right.
I went off of the stakeholder requirements, the required
Okay.
list. And so I tried to get everybody from, a person from each campus, and that they met that requirement.
Okay. I'm glad that's kind of clarified, because that sounds a little bit different than just it was opened up to any and all stakeholders.
No, the survey was. The survey was open
Correct.
to all.
Correct. But there was also a stakeholder committee.
Yes.
Which sounds like, again, all of those 600-700 that responded to the survey could have been eligible to be part of the stakeholder committee, and that's not accurate. That committee was small.
The intention was to keep it a small focus group, so if we have
Okay.
more better results when it's smaller, it seems like we get better input, and maybe better interaction.
And one thing that's important to note is that a committee is not a requirement of this
No.
grant. It's something we went above and beyond and said, everybody can go and they can provide feedback, but it is nice to let people talk. And so she sent invitations.
I sent invitations, yes.
And brought people in.
And I personally called all of them and explained to them what the committee was, what it was about, and that how we would love their input.
Was one of the people on the committee suggested to be a board member, like a lot of the other committees have at least one board member?
No, that wasn't on the stakeholder requirements, no.
Okay, but we were going above and beyond.
Yes,
so
we
could
didn't have to have the
something.
committee, we just decided that that would be a good
And we
idea.
can add a board member.
Okay,
We can, yes.
thank you.
Dr. Douglas asked several of my questions. The committee above and beyond, what was the diverse makeup of the committee?
That stake list.
That stakeholder requirement list.
Went through the list, and then.
So all of Kennedale was represented on the committee as far as race, gender?
Yes,
I'm not
ma'am.
on the committee, so I'm asking.
No, I'm trying to think, yes,
Okay.
ma'am, yes. And then I also made sure that someone from every school was represented.
Okay. And then, like Dr. Douglas, this is a very good presentation, but it would be great if we could have.
If you had this
Because that
survey.
was quick, and I didn't even try.
Yes.
I just put my pen down.
No, I understand, and I'll make sure that
I
you
didn't
get
try
that,
to
and I
keep up.
apologize, I thought you had.
And then, as far as Esler, when you go straight to the district's website, where do you have, is this something that you have to search to find?
No, you'll go into the KISD website, and it'll
Okay.
be, I think, family and
So, because I'm here.
family engagement.
And that's, my concern is, if I'm on the KISD website and I'm a community member, I'm not on the board, where do I access this information? Because I'm right here.
It's under community.
But
Community.
okay, so my point is, you just can't go to the KISD website and it's gonna pop up. So it has to be, these are the steps. First, you go to the KISD website, then you go to parents and communities, and then you're gonna find it in the drop-down.
Okay.
So for those of you that are here and eventually will see this, that's how you access this information.
And we can
it's
make it
there
easier.
Once you're able to figure out where to go.
Yes, ma'am, and we can make it easier.
Okay.
We can ask.
Because this is important, this is
Yeah,
a lot
we
of
can
money.
do
And what you're planning to do with the money is great. After-school tutoring, yes. Social worker kept coming up at each school.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
apparently, that's a big deal.
Yes.
That's great to use the money, but for everybody to understand, this is where you go to get this information.
Okay, yes.
Makes it equitable for everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Additional questions? So I think you just get the information out to everybody with all the detail.
Yes, sir.
That'll help us.
Thank you.
And you did a great job presenting.
Thank you.
No need to be
Thank you,
nervous.
thank
We're gonna
you.
ask questions, but.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
Yes.
Now we move to item 9, which is personnel issues. Again, it's informational. We have in our packets the resignations and new hires.
We're rocking and rolling, getting ready for the next school year, so progressing.
What
Few
was-
more spots to fill, but that's it.
What was our last date for resignation? 25th? June 29th, okay.
Are we at 100% at each campus? As far as teachers?
Oh, we what now?
Are we at 100% teachers? No?
Filled
No.
positions yet?
I was just looking at the news, and I think Dallas is hiring, still hiring, 200 teachers.
Well, there are several districts that are just not having job fairs because.
Yeah.
A bunch of jobs got posted within the past week as these ESSER 3 presentations
Yeah.
have been happening across the metroplex.
And they're predicting significant teacher shortages.
So we really need subs. Maybe we need to up the sub. We already approved it.
We need a teacher.
And then,
Just
so,
the sub-teachers there.
nothing else with regard to resignations, hiring. We'll move on to item 10, the superintendent's report.
Okay, so, let me get if I can see this. Okay, you have your district s'mores from our campuses. Most of our principals are still out on vacation. I would take this opportunity, Spitzer, will you please stand? So this is Courtney Spitzer, she will be our new principal at Patterson, so. And we are, our principals report back next week, so we will be having our administrative nuts and bolts with them, and that's gonna be 2 weeks of fun for those guys, so. So, all right, so you have your s'mores. At this time, we'll start with Mr. Adams coming down, and we will go over the general discussion on budget, my budget workshop.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for approving our payroll.
Thank you.
I don't know if you know, but that's about $955,000 we approved.
Which you're gonna work out.
I'm working out. Budget process. My process is I compare last year, what we budgeted, what we're needing to budget this year, where we're at as far as expenditures. What are our additional needs that we're gonna have to have? ESSER 3 is addressing a lot of those additional needs.
You guys have a handout
Oh,
here.
yeah, you have a handout I gave you, I'm sorry.
Just put on your, in front of you.
I don't know that I need to read each one of these. I evaluate additions or subtractions if a program goes away or it changes, how is that gonna affect our budget? So, like we said, we analyzed payroll quite heavily this year. And when we were discussing it, I was a little leery because I knew it was gonna be more than potentially that we would have coming in. But it was time to make that change and go ahead and go with it, so.
I think the term "bite the bullet" came up many
Yeah,
times.
that came up a lot. Personnel makes up 78 to 80% of our budget. So you could tell how much, how important that is to it. Prepared tentative budgets for the campus and departments and sent them out for their input. Some of them I've heard back from, some I haven't. My intentions are this next week to chase everybody down since everybody's gonna be back from vacation. Revenues. Before the legislative session started in January, we had to submit a estimate of what we thought our average daily attendance was gonna be and what kind of FTEs we would have for like CTE, bilingual, just all of that stuff. That's, the legislative budget board then takes that information and builds budget for education, so. But back when I did it, you know, we were somewhere around 2,700. I thought, surely COVID's gonna go away and we're gonna go up to 2,750. That's what I submitted, and that's what the state's gonna pay us on. I won't know until next May, did we make it? So, because it's on, we only get paid if they're in their seat, but, I'm thinking we're gonna be back to semi-normal. I get preliminary tax values in April. They're nowhere near complete. Basically, they have the residential and some commercial is done at that time. None of inventory that people have to render to the appraisal district, none of that was had been turned in. Oil and gas was not computed at that point in time. But every month I get a new report. The May report pretty well picked up all of the commercial property and some of the other weird, or not weird, but outliers start coming in May, and then I mean in June, and then in July we get certified values. The law requires that we get certified values by July the 25th, but the comptroller hasn't released the truth and taxation documents, so. I have two Zoom meetings next week to work on taxes. Whenever we get our certified values, I have to send it to the state. They'll tell me what I have to compress my tax rate. But then I'll have to go through the computation also. Back 3 years ago, our tax rate was $1.17 for maintenance and operations. That number has been compressed with House Bill 3 and then with the 87th legislature that just finished up, we have to compress some more. And tentatively, our tax rate will be 10479 if our values don't change a great deal from what I got on June the 9th.
So you can see it's quite a drop in 3 years from 117 to 104.
But the good news is our values have gone up. I mean,
But they're capped.
But they're capped, but you're right, John. Federal funding, this is our school health and related services, SHARS. This is we do a cost report. I don't know if you're aware of hospitals. They do cost reports, and then Medicare sends them additional money. So we all, Denise, where'd Denise go? Denise up here. She does our cost report, and that's what generates our federal revenue in the general fund. We also have our grants that are separate and apart. They're also federal money. Like I said, payroll costs are about 78 to 80% of our budget. That includes salaries, benefits. What I mean by benefits is workers' comp, unemployment, teacher retirement, and Social Security, or Medicare. We only pay Medicare. We only pay the 1.45 per school. Contracted services is another big part of our budget. Approximately 11% of it. That's mainly our utilities and some technology. Supplies make up about 8% of our budget. Classroom supplies, office supplies, art supplies, things like that. And then we have other costs, which is about 2% of our budget. The biggest percentage of that is our property and casualty insurance. I'd love to do zero-based budgeting, start all over every year, look and see where we're at. Since I've been here, we haven't had a good year. I mean, a good, clean year to come up with those numbers. We spent a fortune on cleaning supplies this last year. We saved a lot of money on utilities because nobody was at the school building for a long time. So I'm having a hard time addressing what our real cost will be for this next coming year. We're basically going back to the 18-19 school year as a starting point, hoping that this year will be much like that year, where we had school all year. Our tax rate is based on certified values from the appraisal district. I have at least quarterly meetings with the chief appraiser, and he kind of brings us up to date on what's happening across Tarrant County. The fact that we don't have a lot of hotels and other commercial buildings in our district, they were expecting those values to drop dramatically across the county. But Kennedale does not have a lot of those type buildings, so we should be in good shape. Residential property, I'm assuming everybody got their tax notice just like I did, or reappraisal notice, and it was up significantly. Which, I mean, if you go on like a Zillow or someplace, and houses are going for a whole lot more than when I bought my house 2 years ago, on a square foot basis. But I mean, there are some safeguards against that. That they can't go up, they can't double your property values and make you pay double the taxes, so. You will, your job is to adopt a tax rate, adopt the general fund budget, adopt the food service budget, and adopt the interest and sinking budget. We will notify you of all the other federal programs, just like we did Esser 3 tonight. Been working on those the last few days, trying to get them all to balance. So we must conduct a public hearing to discuss the budget and the tax rate. We kind of tentatively set that for August the 12th, assuming Truth in Taxation comes out and I can get the publication made that we need to make to advertise that meeting. And we've been putting it in the commercial recorder. It has to be in a newspaper that's widely circulated in the district. Our other choice is put it in the Star Telegram for a whole lot more money. So we usually choose the commercial recorder. Like I said, certified values should come out on July the 25th. I think last year they came out on like July the 21st. So I know the appraisal district's working hard to get it to us as early as they can. We will adopt a tax rate and the budget at some August board meeting. Could be that we'll ask to move that to like August the 26th to make sure that we have all of our data together for that. Like I said, we're talking about, the next page is talking about the tax rate. This is a form that TA puts out. We plug in last year's certified values. I plug in this year's certified values, and it gives us what we're gonna compress our tax rate. Pretty straightforward. If you have the certified values, you gotta have that first. So anyway, that's where I came up with 1.0479 for maintenance and operation taxes. That will be our compressed rate, leaving the interest and sinking rate at 0.2817 for a combined tax rate of 1.3296. And if you look at your tax statement whenever you get ready to pay it, we are the biggest. Assuming we end up with $1,760,000,000 in values, which is the value that I had at June the 9th, even with the compressed tax rate and a 98% collection rate, we're going to increase our property taxes by 1.179, $1,179,000. So the next page is our general fund budget. Well, see another typo. Thought I caught all these. One of them, first column is the 2021 school year. The next year is the 21-22 school year. I left our property taxes at 16,000 or 16,900,000 for both columns. That's why the local revenue is not as much. Our state revenue is down considerably because we were budgeting all those for 2,900 students versus 2,750. So if we can get back to 2,900, it's a lot better. The federal funds are our SHARS money. We did 250,000 in 2021, and we're increasing that to 300,000. When I've looked through the budget, some items we haven't spent in a couple of years, so I went ahead and took those out. I did stick extra money into instruction, which I thought I had enough to cover all the raises, but I may have to take some of that out of instruction, move it down to other functions. The big item was the debt service. 7 years ago, is that when we did the lease purchase for the servers?
That sounds about right.
We paid it off this year, so we don't need that for next year. So, and then the next page.
Can you explain the bottom line there? I don't
Okay,
the
right
marks.
now, we would have a deficit of 1,426,341 with no tax increase. The tax increase of 1,179,019. We'll still have a deficit of $247,322.
And in theory, that's moved from reserve?
Yes, that will come out of our reserve funds, because we bit the bullet and went up on salaries, so. It's not my idea, the best way to operate, but we kinda got behind on our salaries, so we're playing catch up. We should be back to normal next year.
In terms of the use of some of our Esser funds for personnel costs?
All of our positions that we put into Esser are brand new.
So again, assuming Esser funds aren't available in 2 years?
3 years.
What are we looking at? Finding a way to cover those positions from another source?
Absorbing the positions, most likely. We'll review the data and enrollment and.
Those positions have been advertised as
That's- we've been on
funded
the
through
job
ESSER
description.
funding, and they will go away at that time.
But in theory, they're to help us get learning loss back
Learning
together.
gaps caught up,
And
yeah.
in-
And
in-
the social emotional
and
gaps
if
caught up.
year one or year two, we're not seeing that is beneficial, we have a basis for saying we gotta look at another alternative.
Yeah, we can move to a different direction.
But based on what Mr. G just said, it's already been published that this position is with Esser funds,
Yes,
and in 3 years, this position may not be here.
that's correct.
Is how it's publicized, Mr. G said, okay.
But if we're having performance measures improve with those systems, we're gonna have to justify why we're not gonna try to keep them, absorb them, cover them, or pay for them. I just wanna make
Yeah,
sure.
no,
we're all-
I understand that, but he's letting anybody know if you accept this position and it's a grant,
Yeah.
eventually grants run out.
Yeah.
So then whoever's on the board will have to decide, yes, we're going to increase possibly taxes to pay for this, or as Mr. G says, you understand when you take this position
And
that
to
it's a.
go further, the essence of this grant was to sit there and help school districts, help students recover.
Mhm.
You know, that's over a 3-year period, and that's what they granted the grant for. You know, unless they extend the grant beyond that, but I don't necessarily see that happening. But those funds were intended to sit there and catch kids up, and to sit there and help school districts do that. That was the whole purpose of those funds. So at the end of that period, you know, yes, you may see success with it, but those positions were tied to that grant. And, you know, that's where that, I think, we've been very clear that those positions are not necessarily guaranteed beyond that grant.
Of course, anytime you add a position, it's really hard to get rid of, so. But if it's paying off, we'll find a way to make it happen, so. And hopefully, at the end of 3 years, we'll be all caught up, everything will be wonderful. So, okay, the next page is our food service fund. The way food service is gonna work next year, everybody eats for free again. So we took out most of the local revenue. We left a little bit in there. Mainly à la carte type purchases, ice cream, potato chips, you know, fun stuff that we can't serve as a type A lunch, but we left that in. But we did take out all the local revenue that parents pay to feed the not free or reduced children. But we did increase our revenue for federal funding for lunches. I believe we're gonna get $5 look for a breakfast and a lunch. So we cut out some of our cost. We had been having food service pay for a lot of the utilities that they're building. We were losing money, so we're taking that out for 1 year. That's the $105,000 was food service, utilities for food service that we took out, that we had been paying out of food service when they were making lots of money. And of course, the last page is the INS fund. It does balance. We get property taxes, we get a little bit of state revenue. We are gonna call almost $1.5 million additional bonds. Because our values keep increasing, we have the opportunity to, if we leave our tax rate the same, we can call that bond. If we don't have to pass another bond between now and 2027, we'll be debt-free. Is there any questions?
And I think we'll have a little bit more discussion when we get to our board discussion about the schedule and information that we may want between meetings. So I think we'll cover that.
the timeline, we'll have to set some dates.
I mean, I spend every day looking at it again.
Just love
Did I
it.
cut that way too much? Not quite enough.
From now until we get to the certified values, it's going to continue
It's
to,
gonna
you know,
change.
until he gets the certified values,
Right.
it's a moving
That's right.
target. You know, we got a general idea, but there's still things.
We're looking at about $250,000 deficit, but it's to bite the bullet to make the pay raises that we did.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the next thing on here is the calendar of academic reporting. I've given you a draft version copy. Dr. Boo put certain things into the calendar, and then I have been working with the balanced scorecard of incorporating that into it, where those would fall. Like I said, this is a tentative version. It's not a finalized version, but this will give you an idea of where those topics will start falling. And then you have what was adopted by you, the board, the balanced scorecard. That'll come into play here in a minute, but you can refer to that with this is what would be reported out on, in addition to the mandatory reportings that we have. So I'll let you just read over that, and then we can maybe discuss that again at a later date. So, but there's a version for you. And then the next topic would be transfers. As he said, this year our enrollments were down. We've had several requests from families who've been here in Kennedale, but through whatever circumstances with the housing market, landlords have booted them out of houses, you know, whatever the circumstances are, they no longer live here, but they would love for their kids to continue to go to school here. Those are numbers that Mr. Adams and I, those are numbers that we've already counted into our projections, you know. On our transfer list, I printed off the policy for the transfers. We've had, I'd say, 10 to 15 different families that have requested to stay in the district that they've had to move out. Those are numbers that we've already accounted for. Those would not be additional numbers. But if we wanted to look at changing our transfer policy. So, you know, I printed that out. That's something for you to consider. You know, the other thing that we have talked about, Mr. Cagle and I have had this discussion before, is bringing about a selective transfer policy to where we control the students that we're bringing into our district through transfers. That would be something else that we could also possibly look at. So this is just throwing this idea out there in your heads, but, you know, as we look at moving forward, we also have the developments and, you know, what could possibly be happening with that. You know, we base our teachers off of our FTEs, which is based on our full-time employees, off of our number of students, and try to balance that out to where we maintain a ratio. There's always the thought that more students could come back to us next year that we lost, that we have no control over. So right now, I wouldn't say that we're in a rush to sit there and bring in transfers, but this may be something that we want to look at potentially. So, and that's just a consideration. But I am not opposed to keeping the students that have been our students, that have moved off to other districts, that want to stay here, if that's feasible.
Make sure I understand correctly. So if we went through it and we accepted a transfer, that student counts exactly like a seat of somebody who was. We're not getting 75% of the count or something like that.
And we can also charge transfer fees, you know. But what I'm saying is that right now, we have students that we have counted in our count, that situations have happened that they have left, but they're reaching out to the district to try to stay in the district. So those are the students that I feel like we should try to keep right now, as long as they are not discipline issues, they're not attendance issues, those things.
And they're still under the exception.
We'd have to change this, so, you know, we'd have to change it possibly by, if we have that August 12th, that we could put that on the agenda for the August 12th board meeting.
Would the board like to have the suggested, you know, discretionary transfer? I mean, some of that conversation or suggested language for selected transfers, at least to look at as well?
Start getting into the selective when you start getting into who's on the committee to make those choices. And
ultimately the superintendent has I sign off on it. Principals they would have to fill out the application, go to the principals, they would have to meet, we would set the criteria. I've already been looking at other districts and what their criteria are for transfers. The thing is, the state law changed, and you can't just boot transfers out at any time. They have to stay for an entire year, so you're with them, they're stuck with you for 1 year if there are issues. So this is where you have to define your transfer protocols. Because we haven't allowed them and we're doing selective, we could set the parameters for what that would look like.
I mean, my question is, does the board want to at least look at that selective transfer policy discussion, or you don't want to go into that can of worms?
I would voice my opinion. I'm not in favor of it, but if the board chooses to review it, I will, as a part of the board, I will listen. And then, but that if they move within the school district, within the school year, as it's on this paper, I'm fine with that.
And that's the way it has been. If they move
Right.
during the school year, they're allowed to
They
stay.
can stay.
For the remainder, seniors are allowed to stay because they've gone. They've been in Kennedale. I mean, it's mapped out pretty carefully there. What I'm looking at right now is just those students that have been with us, that for whatever circumstances have had to move off. Are we looking at possibly trying to keep those?
Yeah.
Because those are part of the numbers that we've already accounted for.
Have we had any requests or anything for transferring in? Do we?
We get them all the time.
Open transfers.
Yeah.
He said
Like I
about
said,
10 to
we've had
15
several right now
families.
from families who've been here,
Right.
and now they've had to move out for whatever reason, and they want to stay in.
And we have others that just would want to transfer their children in.
Do what?
We have others that would want to open transfer in.
If we started accepting selective transfers, yes, we'd have people who want to transfer in.
Ms. Moody, can you explain a little bit again, what was your concern about selective transfers, just what the criteria would be?
Well, the way we discussed it, it was, there would be a committee to determine who comes in and who doesn't. And my concern is, if I'm friends with someone on that committee, then no matter how objective you try to be, I have a leg up on someone who doesn't have a friend on that committee. And I know we try to keep it fair across the board. That was my first concern. My second concern was, Kennedale has a reputation of being a very good school district. Not saying that anyone trying to come in would not contribute to that. But as a taxpayer, I want my tax dollars to go to the students who are in Arlington and Kennedale that are in Kennedale ISD. And when you open it up, then you put, in my opinion, you're putting the burden on the campus administrators. As Mr. G said, they're committed for a year. So let's say the child comes in and is perfect because there's always a honeymoon period. And after that honeymoon period is over, the principal and the teachers still have to deal with this
For the rest
child
of the year.
at least
For
for
1
a
year.
year. Before they can say, your attendance is horrible. Your behavior is a little bit better, but just a little bit. So then you have to go through the whole process of, I'm sorry, we accepted your child, and now we're gonna put your child out. That does not look good. So that's open enrollment.
This is
That
where,
was my
looking at,
concern.
looking at the other districts, they have very specifics. The parents have to provide documentation on attendance, they have to provide documentation on grades, they have to provide documentation. And that's where I think that, instead of having a committee, that's more of a campus administrator verifying and checking those things, and then sending it on to me, for me to sit there, they're telling me this, I've checked this student out. It's not a committee saying, oh yeah, hey, we want you. It's campus administrators that will be making that decision.
I think
Well,
another
that
very-
was the discussion,
I gotcha.
moving forward, but that was the discussion when it was first brought to us as
Perfect.
board members.
Thank you.
I think there are some clear advantages to having open enrollment. Everyone around us can take our kids, and we're not taking theirs. So.
And now you got charters, and it
Yep,
makes all.
right in our backyard.
So I think the original question from President Clark was, do we want to have the conversation? And it looks like maybe we do need to have a conversation on a couple different levels. what about the 10 or 15 that were in the district? We might need to modify it to even allow them. And then that's a
if y'all are
separate
okay with it,
conversation.
I can start working with TASB and getting language of developing here to address that
Well, at
situation.
least that situation,
I can
and then-
propose that, and we can have that at the, if we have the special meeting and at the 12th, we get that with
Ms.
that.
Villagomez has a comment.
My
Oh.
question is, are we only, because I'm sure this has been going on for years, are we only thinking about it and considering it now because our enrollment is lower this upcoming year? Because my concern would be, it's low right this second, but we have all this housing coming in, this development coming in, and we're talking about how we're needing to shift schools around because of planning for that.
I think this is where I said, I don't think we have to have the open enrollment discussion, complete open enrollment discussion, you know,
Yeah.
or even selective open enrollment, you know,
Okay.
at this point in time. I think if anything, we simply try to keep the numbers that we have right now.
Yeah.
And
And
that
10,
would be
15
keeping
that
those
made the
kids that
request.
we've already counted them as in our numbers here because they had to move out for whatever reason.
And they've reached out
And then
saying
if
they
we
want us to
see
count.
that the numbers are going to continue to decrease, then we can look at the selective enrollment.
Historically, I think back in the 90s, we used to have open enrollment. I may be wrong about that, but I'm fairly certain we got away from it because Delaney got overcrowded.
Well, again, it depends on the policy that we implement,
that's what
because you
I would
certainly can
make
say
sure
the
you
priorities
already
are that
have
if
the
you are a
Patterson
non-resident,
Delaney thing, so are people
open
going
enrollment
to
transfer, and our population is such that we can't handle that
and say I
student
can only
load,
go to this one?
there's a culling, and they're probably the first ones culled. Now, that's not fair to the student who may gone 4 years and all of a sudden is culled. But the
You
question
know.
is, do we have the conversation? And it doesn't have to happen next week or next
Right.
month, but, you know, I just want to make sure that while we're talking about it, do we at least want to have the conversation, discuss it as a board, and then at least have it in our heads as we move forward. You know, maybe none of the population hits with the new developments, but maybe they're all senior living and they have no kids. We just don't know yet.
Another consideration is that group of, that pocket of students, we said that the population was, there were not a whole lot of bursts on the thing that we showed. They're at the 5th and 6th grade levels, you know, right now, 6th, 7th grade levels. When they get to the high school, our high school numbers could be down significantly to where
Yeah.
we're not even in 4A anymore, you know? So those are some considerations that we may have to look at down the road.
Okay.
Well, we'll be a strong 3A.
With great facilities.
So this is called selective open enrollment, this one is what?
This is basically, we only allow kids who have been in our district that are seniors that
To
have moved
stay.
out. You know, right now, what I'm proposing is just adding a clause to maybe just keep the ones that have been here that have moved out for this last year so that we can keep in our numbers.
So it's a two-step. Those
Just adding
who-
a clause, yeah.
Those who were in our district that moved out for some reason, coming back within a year, is that we're talking about, kind of something like that. And then the second step is when we actually go into some different open enrollment.
And do we make a some type of distinction between how long they were in the district, or if they were in the district, where we would consider that?
We can propose whatever, so, you know.
And-
There are some kids that have been in the district for a long time, and then they had to move out for whatever reason, and they, you know, they wanted to stay, but they couldn't.
And my other point would be, if we're tabling this for now and not discussing it until August 12th, that's the first day of school. So these families, as a mom of kids in school, I would want to know what my plan is
Yeah.
for the first day of school before the first day of school.
We do start sooner because of our district of innovation. We do start school sooner than a lot of
I'm
other
fine
districts.
starting, so if they go somewhere else, but what if they start here? What if the board decides to start here?
Well, we have
And
a
then they
timing
miss.
issue. We have to adopt the policy. If we're modifying it, we have to adopt it. So then it means, I have a problem, we can call a special meeting to address the issue of the transfers of students who were here, who
Yeah.
left, who want to come back.
I just wanted to bring up the point, because if it was me waiting to know, I would
Right.
prefer to know before the first day of school, if at all possible. I know it would be like a special instance that's really benefiting them, since they want to attend, but just pointing that out.
Let's go ahead and get the information together about kids that were already here and moved out, and we'll discuss open enrollment at a later
And
date.
I'd say those kids also have to meet our requirements also, you know? And if they were here and they were behavior issues and attendance issues, then no, we're not gonna accept that, you know? So, I mean, those are the things that we would definitely be in place.
So when we get to our discussion in terms of calendar and here at meetings, we may want to talk about having something to get it done before the first day of school.
Yes, quickly, so they know what to do.
All right.
Mhm.
And then next is,
The basketball
I
court.
skipped over one, sorry, but, outdoor basketball court project and costs associated. Ms. Mode, gave y'all some information here, so for your information, a couple of different versions. If you have questions, you can, I think it's,
That's only for
I think
one
they're
set of
pretty
buildings.
One sec. So I read it like there's likely more cost, not less.
This was kind of exploratory, so there was no real specification, there was no bid put out, there was nothing there. But I did pull some data from a prior bid, but it was more for a playscape, but it did address the basketball court where you had a cover and then you have to deal with birds and then you get the fancy cover and it gets really, really expensive. One of the suggestions in talking with the coaches about this, out here in our parking lot, we could do it really quickly and easily for less than $10,000. If you know where that guard shack is out there, there's a light. Right by that, we could put a goal there, walk right across and put another goal there, and they can play basketball there under the lights. Do we want them playing all night there? No, but that is an option to get that done. But to build a court, we're gonna be at about $150,000 or more, depending on where we put it. It feeds the need for some of our students, but it's really a community need. I talked to Mr. G some, we do own property around. Maybe we deed some land to the city of Arlington and they can build a community basketball court, I don't know. There was just several options, and without y'all looking at this and having a little more discussion about it of where you really wanna go with it, or do we really wanna go with it, it's just some options out there. So we'll do whatever you deem necessary for us to do, but, we can do it. We can put a little something out there and not spend a whole lot of the district's money. But if we want to make something really nice, we're gonna have to spend some money. So that's kind of where we are on that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them to the best of my ability, but this was really just exploratory for your information because it was asked. But that's the quick and easy option to get basketball goals up. We could do that pretty quickly with our, like I said, it's the parking lot and there's lights there. We can put some goals up and it would be out towards the street
By the
too,
road,
so
close
the
to the
community could see the kids playing and make sure nothing's going awry over there. But it's strictly up to y'all. It's the information. Be glad to do whatever you want me to do with it.
I know Mr. Oaktie uses the front parking lot for the band.
It's past, he's already had that painted for the marching band.
Right.
It is not in the marching band area on there. So, and we could even mark off a court on there. I don't think it'd be regulation size, but it would still fill the need. We'll paint and some basketballs and basketball goals, and we can do that for you.
What did the coaches say about the need or want for something like
They
that?
weren't real
Excited about it?
not excited about it at all. Because that brings kids into the parking lot unsupervised, and we already have open gym pretty much every day. Coach Groff lives here. The only reason he's not here this week is we refinished the floors this week. So, but for the most part, Coach Groff is here almost 7 days a week, and we do give an opportunity for open gym. So if kids want to come in, and then it's supervised and it's air conditioned and all that stuff. So it's just, you know, on there. So again, I'm easy. I'll go either way you want to go.
It's a thought. I know we do have the park with the half court down the street on Sublet.
Mhm.
Butterfly Park the other direction.
And we own the 11 acres on the other side of that Butterfly Park. Kennedale ISD owns that. I talked to Mr. G about that. Maybe we give a couple acres of that and deed it to the city of Arlington, because it's in the city of Arlington, and say, here, we'll give this to you if you'll build a community basketball court. That would be the best of both worlds, but I don't know if the city wants to do that. I know they do have it down at Stovall Park. They have they have sand volleyball and lots of basketball courts there too. And it would also release the burden of Kennedale PD of keeping up with that, because that is in the city of Arlington, so it would become a city of Arlington to police it. And we don't seem to have trouble at the Butterfly Park, so who's to say there'd be any at the other, so. Just something to think about. There's all kinds of options there. I think it does warrant more discussion. But that's just as you as a board of what you wanna go, the direction you wanna go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing
Uh-huh.
that information to us.
All right.
Okay, and then you have the balanced scorecard. She's got the beliefs, mission, vision, and then the 4 goals are mapped out on the first column on the sheet. We were going to look, I think, at the formative review for January for my evaluation. Looking at the 4 goals, the second column is the performance objectives, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 on the first one. And the other ones have the performance objectives tied with those. So I guess, where do you want to go with this, Mr. Clark?
Well, again, we have not done a formative process with our superintendents before. We'd be the first group to do one. My thought is that whatever, I would like us to have 1 or 2 goals established for Mr. G that we can look at in January, said, how do they align with our district goals and that are measurable, attainable, basically SMART goals. And so I'm bringing it up today so that we can have that conversation. Can we come up with 1 or 2 goals that we believe are important enough to put on him as these are goals that we're going to establish and look at in January as a part of your evaluation? I mean, I don't think you can have 10 goals, but you can have 2 or 3 and be effective. And so I'm opening it up for a discussion of, in terms of, if we were to say, Mr. G, the most important thing for us is see growth in our students. Okay, then you have to say, okay, growth of what percentage? We want 75% in growth in all students, or you want to have 100% growth in all students? Something that we can say, we can go see the data, and your job is to get us there. Trying to find that 1 or 2 thing goals that we can really sink our teeth into, and he can sink his teeth into, and show us that we're meeting what the district wants to do as far as our established goals, and he's providing that leadership. So again, we have not traditionally had any sort of goal set for our superintendent, and I'd like for us to get to the point where we are setting those goals. So the floor is open for a conversation about, 1, do we want to do it? Again, I want to have a formative evaluation session where we sit down and we're talking about what we want to see happen. And then if we do want to do it, what are your ideas for how, what goal would we like to see achieved, or what series of goals do we want to say we want to see achieved?
Well, I can kick this off by saying I think it's something we need to do.
Okay.
Okay, exactly how we go about that, I haven't really gotten that deep into it yet, but that's something I think is good for us to go through.
Okay. And so do we want to spend time this evening on it, or do y'all want to think about, like the one thing, if you were to tell Mr. G, this is the one thing I want to see accomplished between now and January, and we align it with what our goals are here. We want to come back to our next meeting and say, this is my idea of a goal. I'm happy to do it that way, but we'll probably come in with 7.
I was gonna,
Which is okay.
I was gonna say, I also like the idea of it, and maybe what we need to do instead, because we're gonna come up with 7 completely different things, is maybe we each come up with 3 or 4, and then figure out which ones overlap the most, so we're not giving him 42 things to complete with excellence by January.
And I'm happy, again,
Because I think you can probably, if we get 3 or 4 things from each of us that we think are really top quality, these we need to focus on, I bet we could probably pull the essence of what we come up with to come up with some attainable.
Are we basing those 3 or 4 things off of these things?
No.
Are they just gonna be, hey, let's pull this over here?
Can you fly?
Yes.
I think we really should try, and I think it's best policy practice that we try to align his goals with our district.
Of course, I was joking.
So, having said, is everyone comfortable with it? How about
Thank you
this?
for saying that better than I just.
Say within the next 2 weeks, because we're gonna have a meeting
Yeah.
on budget issues. How about within the next 2 weeks, everybody, if you want, just email me
Yeah, that's a
your
good
idea of
idea.
a goal that you believe is aligned with the 4 goals that we have here.
Sure.
And, you know, the only thing I would suggest is make it something that is achievable, that's realistic, and that we can measure somehow. And that's gonna turn to Dr. Vu to say, show us the data that supports that is being achieved or not, or there should be data that we can look at. I mean, I talked to,
And we will be presenting, looking at the calendar that I just gave you, August, you know, our principals will be back and we will be presenting the, BOY to EOY results for the math data.
you know, and again, and I told Ms. Douglas, my idea would be a very simple one, would say, obviously, I use growth. We want to see growth in our student population in terms of academic achievement of 2% for 80%, 10% for 100. I mean, that is a goal that we can use map data to say we are accomplishing it.
If you're 80,
I understand, you know.
What's our deadline?
How about within 2 weeks? Because we're gonna have a meeting early August on budget. So that gives me time to kind of assimilate it, and I can try to synthesize it and say, this kind of is the same.
And we're doing 1? Is that what you said?
Well, I'm saying everybody give me 2.
Oh,
Give me
okay, 2, okay.
And, you know, just, maybe the 2 will be the same.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
between 2 of us, it'll be the same, and we can limit those. But at least we'll do something that we have not done before and have another measure to look at in the evaluation process.
Great.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you all for willing to take that on. That's,
2 or more.
try to keep it 2. I have to synthesize it.
He did start out with 2 or 3. We're down to 2.
Well, I'm saying as a group, 2 or 3.
Okay.
I'm gonna be looking at 21 with 3.
There'll be commonalities.
Okay. All right.
all right, so.
That's everything on your
All-
list.
You'd asked requests for that section, right? And so we're good there?
Yes.
Okay. And that pretty much covers my report.
Okay, then that brings us to board discussion. And so the items that we're gonna talk about in terms of our meeting dates. So we have to have a special meeting, tentatively that's set for August 12th, 2021. Now, if I understand it, you're gonna come in with a generalized, I think our budget's gonna be here because we don't have to commit until the 26th, right? So, question to the board, in terms of the data and the volume and the level of information you want, do you want to have a work session at the beginning of that, maybe prior to 6 o'clock, where he comes in and said, here's my presentation, and then we're gonna have a public hearing, and he's gonna present it again, so you can ask questions? Is that, okay, so, is everyone, as far as you can tell, would you be okay doing that 5 o'clock on the 12th? Having an hour with Jimmy going through it and kind of presenting it so we can ask questions? Is that possible, guys? Our scheduling people are looking. Possible?
It's possible. I mean,
Okay.
you're having the public hearing at 6.
But again, my point is, I think it'd be good for us to have our questions
Yes.
addressed rather than going to public hearing and have a whole bunch of issues coming
Yes.
up. Again, the question is the detail that you want. Again, generally it's presented, here is, you know, instruction, and it's a number. Do you want a lot of detail underneath that? Okay, that's for Delaney's 2nd grade, we're gonna spend this much, and I don't think Jimmy can get that together. I just want you to understand, it's not easy to get that kind of detail, but I don't want to foreclose you from saying I'd like an answer as how this was comprised.
Right.
So I'm asking y'all, what do you want?
I want a definition sheet.
Pardon?
I want a definition sheet. So your,
The
presentation of
acronyms.
tax rate, increase rate, call the bond. That's what I would like. I want to know exactly what that means. Yes. So
It would
that
also-
5 o'clock time would be so, Go through that one more time in detail, call the bond means, and then tell me what it means.
Do you want function code
No, I
descriptions?
don't
You
know.
don't? Does anyone else
I don't know
like
if
any
anybody
function
else
codes?
I think we're getting off into.
I just wanna make sure, I mean, I don't wanna come into a meeting and say, I don't have this information. I wanna get it answered now before we do.
All night long.
I want a cheat sheet.
Okay, so it's a more general view, is what I'm hearing. All right. So we're gonna do that at tentatively 5 o'clock on the 12th with the special meeting public hearing at 6 o'clock on the 12th.
Perfect.
And then there's this.
And we may add a few more things to that special session.
Right, we're talking about maybe, again, August 12th will not solve the problem for transfers. We're gonna have to do something before the 12th.
Yes.
So again,
So let me get with Tasby, and what I may do is just send it out to you, and then if we can call a special
10-minute meeting.
afternoon session or something, and
and
y'all wanna do that.
all okay with doing it, trying to get in before that?
Absolutely, I think we need to for those families.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about the regular meeting moving to August 26, 2021, because it's getting all the budget and all the pieces together. Does that date seem good for everyone?
It does for
The
me.
meeting is scheduled for the 19th right now, but with the timelines, with not knowing when the certified values are gonna come in, and the comptroller not issuing the thing, pushing the meeting to August 26th, we just have to have it adopted before September 1st.
And I will, my only potential problem with that is my daughter's expecting our first grandchild on the 24th in Tulsa. And so if she's on time, our plan is to go up, spend a day or two and come back. But if she's not on time, I might not be here for the 26th. So I don't know that. So just be prepared if that happens. Guess who gets to run the meeting?
I won't be here for August 26th. I know I won't be here on the 26th.
Okay, then,
We still have a quorum.
Yeah.
there'll be a quorum. I just don't,
I'm just,
Is there a better day?
do you want to
It
push
doesn't
it
have
back?
to be the Thursday, it could be Tuesday, the
Yeah, I was gonna say Tuesday, 24th.
The exact date that John Clark's granddaughter.
That's-
grandson-
yeah.
Well, the question is, could it go back to like the 28th? I don't know what that damn week
that's
is.
a Saturday.
It's a Saturday.
No,
Sorry.
I leave it on the 26th, and I'll
Okay.
try to change.
And I'll try, I plan to be here if
Yeah.
everything goes according to plan, but only
And
God
then
knows.
I shall-
If nothing else, we'll.
But this
we'll
is,
figure it out.
this is the budget, so
It
is
is a
that
budget.
It
It's a
is the
big- It's an
budget.
important piece of what we do.
So what about you, would you be available the 24th? I know you may not on the 24th or the
No,
26th.
I'll
depending on-
rearrange.
Oh, you will rearrange?
I'll work to rearrange.
Okay, so the 26th would work for you?
That'll be fine.
And I'm hopeful it'll work for me, I just.
Right,
So
don't
we
know.
wanna shoot for the leave it at the 26th?
Leave it on 26th, okay.
All right. The new hire orientation, we usually do a school board ice cream social with the new hires. That will be Thursday, July 29th, here in the media center at 3:00 PM.
And the other event was convocation is,
Convocation is August 6th from 8 to 10 o'clock.
I will miss that.
That will be
it's a
in
lot
the
of fun.
cafeteria and the gym.
I'm gonna miss that too.
That's August 6th, 8 to 10.
Yes.
And then I've spoken with Robert Gavois. He believes he can have numbers and everything ready to have the next community meeting, July 26th. And that will be at the junior high again from 6 to 8.
So July 26th, we're thinking 6 to 8.
July 26th, 6 to 8.
And that is tentative, or that's pretty much?
No, he says he will be ready, so.
Okay, okay. July 26th, 6 to 8 will be the next meeting. Okay, community meeting. I just have one other question about the community meeting, if I may.
Yeah.
I know we heard from a group, and there was kind of like an, informal survey, if you will, on social media. But has the district thought about maybe sending out another survey? We got a really good response, 700 people to the Esser survey. A survey on, here's the two options,
I
and
think
letting
that
people weigh in.
In seeing that there is a split, I think the survey, but, ultimately, it may stay split on the survey. So ultimately, we're gonna
Right.
have to make a decision.
Well, it's
based off
reality,
the
we are most likely gonna have to make this decision.
I agree, but I think sometimes at the meetings, there's a certain representation that shows up, and others are not able to come, and then it flips the other way. I mean, if you look at social media.
Who's there, yeah.
Depending on who's there, versus if we had a survey that went out, it would give that 700, and again, you're right, if we get a 50-50 split, we've got to make the best decision on the behalf of the whole school district and the students, I understand that. It would just, I think, make the people feel that their voice has been registered, and it would let us know where we do stand, because some of the social media ones are not 50-50 split. some of the media, the attendance at the meetings have been 50-50 split, but social media is not split 50-50.
I don't have a problem sending out a survey on the 2, 3, and 5 and said, here's what 3
Yes.
is, here's what 5 is. Given these two options, what's your preference?
Just so we know where people stand.
And honestly, I think that you could even condense it to, 3 and 7 now, or 5 and 7, and we're, anyway.
Right.
That's just.
And will we hear at the community meeting, because I know one of the things we talked about is maybe having Dr. Vu present data on, is there discrepancies between the
I think
schools?
that's an assumption because the other ladies you spoke already said something. I think Mr. Gadbois had talked about it at the last meeting, so I think those were already an assumption that was gonna happen.
That was gonna happen, okay, great, so we will hear from Dr. Vu, and we will consider another survey out there, and then we'll have to see where the numbers stand, and we'll make the best decision we can. Okay.
The thing with surveys is they're usually split.
Well,
At
I don't know,
least
those
everyone has
surveys.
a chance.
Yeah, but
Every
everybody has
time
a
we do
chance.
surveys of the district, it's like,
But-
this person over here and this person, I hate it, I love it, and then you got the ones.
At the
kinda
end of the day, though, the
all-
board is gonna decide, but I think this is just because we saw after that last meeting, and there were 4, and of course, it was sent out, it was posted on Facebook, everyone got emails, texts, I mean, we all heard about it, but for the people that didn't exactly understand what was happening at the, planning committee, strategic planning committee, at least if they can't be at the meeting, then they have an option to just click, and we're not saying we're opening it up for more discussion or opening it up for
No.
more options, it's
These
what
two.
we've nailed it down to, pared it down, just pick 1 or 2, it shouldn't hopefully take too long. And then at least you've covered your bases, it's been sent out.
I'm okay with how we can post it quickly and get that out there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Any other issues, conversation, discussion? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Glover. Second by Mr. Bisco. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you all for your attendance and participation. I think what papers to sign. don't we? Then mine-
Thank you,
Okay.
yeah. I was like,